Yo, what's good, folks? The golden voice that you're hearing right now is none other than the one and only Truth Be Told. You know, positive is where I live. And the podcast that you're listening to right now is The E.I.T.H.R. by my boy, D.Cal, my OG. So give it up and listen in. I love y'all. Mwah.
What up, testing. 1 2 1 2. Are we on? Looks like we are. Hey, this is D-Cal, host of the E.I.T.H.R. podcast. How you guys doing?
Here we go, a show to slowly unfold some views that's in the news that make us uncomfortable. You never heard this podcast is broadcasting contrast of popular opinion. Stop that, assuming that you knew every view that's brewing. So keep it moving. If you got any sense, then you're welcome to put two so in. Listen in, relax, chill, take a breather, and let D-Cal put y'all onto the ether.
Hey, what up? Your boy D-Cal here, hosting the E.I.T.H.R. podcast from the GNSHQ here in Northern California, episode number 139. I know this is different. I usually do Monday, Wednesday, Friday broadcasts, but this Tuesday morning, I really feel like getting some things off my chest. So we're going to get right down into this. Yesterday was the very first episode back from the podcast hiatus. And, a lot of things happened in between the last episode 137 to yesterday's episode 138. And we're going to be moving forward with a little bit more consistency and giving you guys better content than before. That's the goal. So to those who are listening to the podcast, welcome back. To those who are new to the podcast, welcome here. The E.I.T.H.R. podcast, the elephant in the room. We talk about discussions and topics that usually are difficult to have with your peers because most of the people tend to be a little bit one-sided. So we look at things from a multitude of perspectives. So even if you walk away from the podcast with a mindset of still disagreeing with what we're talking about, hopefully you'll have a better understanding of what you're disagreeing with. The phone number to the podcast is area code 916-282-9372, 916-282-9372. You are more than welcome to follow us on social media. For Twitter and Instagram is going to be the same handle, which is the E.I.T.H.R, THEEITHR. You can also hit us up on TikTok under our parent company, which is the GNS Inc., THEGNSINC. Go ahead and give us a subscription to our TV channel. GNSETV.com. It's our online streaming channel, and working on some projects on the side of all that. So inspirational, motivational. I'm going to go ahead and give this out real quick for everybody. I think I said this before, but I'm going to reiterate it again. You're never going to be judged by somebody who is doing better than you. Keep that in mind, folks. Right? So a lot of people want to jump out of their comfort zone and take risks and do things that they normally are in their own heads regarding why they should not do something that's different. And most of the time we do that because we allow the doubt and fear or the opinions of others to make the decision for ourselves. But you have to understand, the only people who are truly going to judge you are those who are also afraid to take the step. And usually that comes, they are hesitant or afraid or very skittish of receiving the same type of criticism that they give. They're the doctors who don't like the taste of their own medicine, yet they never want to change their prescription. So it's one of those things where you have to understand they're going to talk shit about you regardless. Ladies and gentlemen, they're going to say something. Someone's always going to have something slick to say. So the best thing for you to do is give them something slicker to talk about. So when it comes down to it, Chief, it's your decision. And there's two types of pain you're going to feel: the pain of success or the pain of regret. One hurts more, the other hurts significantly longer. So you got to keep that in mind. And we didn't give a shout out yesterday, but I have to give this shout out now. Truth be told, what up, man? My homie out there in Colorado, he's the one who has done the theme to the E.I.T.H.R podcast that you heard at the beginning of the episode. So I was looking for something, and my man was able to come through with that. So I want to give a huge shout out to Truth Be Told. Make sure you guys follow him on social media. TRUTHBTOLLED. Truth Be Told. It's a metaphor right there if you haven't caught on to that. So this morning, as I'm getting ready to go about my glorious day, I was on social media, and I have taught myself to not fall for the rhetoric of the comment section. But I do go to the comment section at times to get a feel for what the masses are saying about what's being posted. And for me personally, the social media aspect of things has gotten to where more people aren't really caring about the point of the post. More people are in the space to just share what they think about the person or people involved. Ain't even got nothing to do with anything. It's just the fact they like you or they don't like you. So that's what they start to quibble about. So anyway, in this voyage of the rabbit hole, it was a couple of things that I came across. So we're going to get right into that once we get a word from our sponsor. And then we're going to get into these couple of things that I want to talk about that really, really bother me. But in the world of social media, nobody really gives a damn about the why. Their whole thing is, I just want to get my point across about how much I don't like him, her, or them. So, they rather be entertained than educated. So here we're going to try to do educating in a very entertaining way. It's your boy Decal here to E.I.T.H.R podcast. We'll be right back after this.
Most t-shirts are simply cool to look at and or look in. Well, so are ours. But ours also aim to send a message. They aim to put a name on obstacles that once stood in your way and aren't there anymore. Struggles that you turned into successes and crushed. You made it look easy. Shop at mile.today. Mile.today. www.mile.today. A GNS collection.
This is Matt from Sacramento, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with Decal.
All right, so we spoke about this a little bit yesterday and in previous episodes, but we're going to go ahead and do it again because this kind of is really irritating to me, to my soul. Now, keep in mind, all right, I'm a little bit older than I am I'm a little bit older than I was when I was younger. Common sense, right? But when you're younger, your perspective on life and certain things hasn't really opened up just yet. And there are certain experiences that you have to go through, some experiences more than twice, to have a better understanding of what it is that other people are trying to say. And a lot of people, they spend their time trying to stay safe, stay within a comfort zone, get to a point where they have security, if you will. So they don't necessarily take risks to have these experiences so they can't understand. Can't necessarily fault somebody for not wanting to get out of their comfort zone, but one should also applaud those who do make the attempt to get out of their comfort zone. Because again, you gain experiences and understanding of certain things that you were most ignorant about prior to. So what am I talking about? I want to get into real quick about the explosion, if you will, of these superheroes that are taking a forefront in the world of movies and comics, right? Long before most of us were on this earth, you had your comic characters of like your Superman and your Spider-Man and your Batman and your Wonder Woman and all these other fun things, right? And kids grew to emulate, want to mimic, want to be like, idolize these characters. 100% perfectly fine. Most of these characters came about in the, not all of them, but most of them came about, from my understanding, like in the 50s and 60s, where, you know, you had Lone Ranger and you know, characters such as that, which got into the characters, like I said, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, so on and so forth, the Hulk, Thor, Captain America, blah, 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 blah. Stan Lee, who is the architect of the Marvel comic, he created this whole universe that just became just this sensation for people today. And Disney has now turned it to like the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Keep in mind, the universe doesn't always follow how the comics go. It adds a little bit more of a dramatic twist to some of the films. If you understand how some of the comics go, the MCU would take several different aspects from a certain character's universe and intertwine them into a movie. And a lot of people have these beliefs. The movie is accurate. They're not. It's a different world of rules compared to the comic book. But my gripe is a little bit different. And it goes to this explosion of P.O.C. superheroes in the comics and strips and film. Stan Lee once said, well, I'm sorry, it wasn't Stan Lee, but it was a narration of Stan Lee and the other creators. Please forgive me for not remembering their names at the top of my head. During the time of when these comics were starting, civil rights was a thing. It was a thing that needed to be addressed. It was a thing that needed to be approved. There was blatant disrespect to anybody that didn't look like a certain person. So, you had these superheroes of color. Power Man, for example. Luke Cage. You had Falcon. You had Black Panther. You had all these characters during this time. But one character I want to bring up that I did some research on was Isaiah Bradley. If you saw the Falcon and Winter Soldier series on Disney, Isaiah Bradley had made a cameo, which I respected them for doing that. Isaiah Bradley, chronologically, was the first or the third Captain America. It was him. But during that time, a black superhero representing America didn't sit well with the audience. It didn't really do well in sales or in support. So if I remember correctly from what I read, Steve Rogers was the third Captain America chronologically. But during that time again of the 60s, blonde hair, blue eyes, America, it took off. That was more accepted. So Isaiah Bradley got set on the shelf, if you will. And other characters of color during that time didn't move as well through the circulation as their palm-colored counterpart. Now, fast forward, you had female-led teams in comics, but they did not do well. Why? Because nobody really wanted to believe of a woman superhero. There were some that did well, but not as well as their male counterpart. So, these characters over time developed, and they were created, and they were put in circulation, but they did not have the same allure as an Iron Man, as a Thor, as a Hulk. They just didn't. But certain groups gravitated towards Black Panther and Power Man. Now, you can kind of use your imagination for during that time. I kind of go back in history on that to set this up. Moving forward in today's world, you have the emergence of characters of color in, for example, the MCU. And it's getting a lot of backlash for it. It's getting a lot of backlash, especially since Endgame happened. And if anyone knows the Endgame, that was the closing chapter, if you will, for like the first 10 to 12 years of the Marvel movies, of the MCU, that we all kind of became fans of. Not just the comic people, but like the casual fan was able to latch on to this because they made it more of a drama story comedy than necessary accuracy from the comic books. So once the Endgame finished and they kind of went on into this expansion of different characters that was in the Marvel universe, I want to say that's when people started getting oversaturated with this liberation of colored characters, to use terms from the 60s, right? And then this introduction to female-led characters. Again, social media is, it's a cesspool of just negativity and bullshit. Now, you do have a nice sauna of positivity and enlightened people who follow, who are interested, who appreciate the direction. But it's the cesspool that's getting all the attention, right? So with all that said, shows like She-Hulk is getting canceled for their second season. You have shows like Echo, which allegedly, apparently, supposedly had negative reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. You had the piss poor timing of COVID when the Black Widow movie was getting released in theaters, and it didn't do well because COVID wasn't allowing anything to be open and people couldn't go out. Just to kind of name a few. There are so many. We're not even going to get into the whole Captain Marvel thing, because people hate her. Not the character so much as Brie Larson. Now, for me, I ain't got no problem with Brie Larson. One, I don't know the woman, never met the woman. Two, she's from Sacramento, California. I grew up in an era, man. If someone was from your soil, you supported that. You rooted them on. You encouraged that. There was some pride for that. You could not like the person and like the character. That's perfectly fine for reasons that you knew specifically or may have heard about amongst your area. But I grew up where if someone was from Oakland, or someone was from Richmond, or someone was from Frisco, or somebody was from San Jose, or somebody was from Walnut Creek, or someone was from Berkeley, or someone was it was like, man, the Bay's on the map. Hey, they from the Bay, I got them. I'm watching it, man. So and so, such and such. You supported your own. now there's so many people from Sacramento who bash Brie Larson. And the understanding of it is because she is a feminist, right? And she believes that more female-led movies and female characters should be, empowered and put in positions where they're less sexualized and all this other fun stuff. And, I'm paraphrasing, if you will. I don't see anything wrong with that. A lot of the people, in my opinion, who have a problem with that, they sound a lot like the people did in the 60s when it wasn't your typical white male superhero. It sounds a lot like the people who feel a woman's place is to be seen and not heard. Anyone who disagrees with that comment I just said, ask yourself, have you made comments similar to that? If yes, how are you arguing with what I said? Understand something, ladies and gentlemen. When someone makes a comment about you, or someone makes a judgment about you, someone makes an accusation towards you, someone comes to a conclusion based on something you did, said, and you feel attacked, you feel as if you have this obligatory purpose to say something. Usually when you feel attacked, that's because that's accountability right there. You have been checked directly or indirectly for something you have said or something you have done, and you feel cornered because there's nowhere else for you to point the blame. So your next reaction is to get defensive and lash back at that person. Social media is really good at that because there's no accountability for anything anyone says or do. Because hell, you can hide your picture behind an avatar or behind whatever. You don't even have to upload your photos. Fuck, you can create a whole fake ass account and troll people that way. But when someone makes you feel accountable and you're not used to that feeling, it feels as if you're being attacked. So if you feel that way, good, right? Because I understand how that feeling goes. Before I learned what accountability was, not the definition of the word, but the definition of the feeling, I would attack people until someone once made me realize, okay, I have to own that. I did say that. Ooh, I did make that comment. God, I used to joke like that. Man, okay, cool. Empathy usually helps with accountability. Instead, a lot of people have apathy. But as I said in numerous episodes of this podcast, most people who feel that way, the apathetic part is because that's how they make their friends now. I'm going to bash you, tear you down because that's what's cool. That's what's popular. That's what gets me likes. That's what makes me cool in this group. That's what gets the attention. I'm able to say some slick shit and not have anyone check me about it. And most of these people live in small towns, again, or they have profile names, and they don't put their information on their page. So you don't know who they are. That's a coward move. Sorry. There's a difference between protecting your identity because people can take your photos, your name, and plaster it and make a bad name for you, versus you doing it yourself and you don't want anyone knowing who you are. That's a coward move. But when you have characters like the Marvels, it's a female-led movie, a female superhero. Anybody who have a daughter and you're bashing a female-led movie, you might want to check yourself, because one day your little girl is going to want to be something that someone told her she can't be. Or matter of fact, she's going to want to be something that someone said she could be. Imagine the reaction she's going to get when one day her dad said girls aren't supposed to do this. And that's kind of the thing that she wants to do. And you got to tell your baby, no, your daddy was just being funny. And she's going to be like, well, everyone who says things like that to be funny don't support women who want to do that. So which side of the mouth are you talking out of, Pop? Which side are you really, who are you? For real. You can't say women can't do this, that, and the third, and then turn around and support your daughter. That's no backbone, in my opinion, right? In my opinion. And I know there's a fine line between making a snarky joke. Okay, cool, great, I get that. Being sarcastic, haha, funny, being tongue-in-cheek, absolutely. But it's a difference when you do things to support and use comedy for certain moments to lighten the mood, be sarcastic. But if your whole MO is women shouldn't be, or this person sucks because of whatever, again, going back to the woke statement we talked about yesterday, that ain't it, bro. That's not it. So I have this gut feeling that the mindset from the 60s is still alive today. So when people say certain aspects like racism, sexism, prejudice doesn't exist, yes, it does. It just has a touchscreen versus a rotary phone. It's the same. It's the same mindset. You're not going to want to believe or accept it, but it's the same shit, bro. Like it really is. Now, flip side of that coin, you do have companies and situations that will take advantage and exploit this momentum shift of empowerment for people of color and women, and they will saturate. That's where it gets tricky, because we were talking about yesterday the difference between appreciation and appropriation. Well, there's a fine line between being woke and oversaturating the market. And I think the negativity comes because there's just so much being thrown in their faces. Reminder, when it comes to social media, there's algorithms, y'all. And these algorithms like to pick up patterns. So it's one of those things where if you tend to look at something, the system is going to start to pick up patterns of, oh, they like to watch things like this, so let's send them this. Something along these lines. So what it feels like something is constantly in your face is because your patterns show the algorithm this is what you're interested in. So we're going to show you more of what you're interested in. It doesn't understand you're not interested. You're just watching it because this is going to sound a certain type of way. You're watching something you don't like to show you how much you don't like it. It's like watching a clip of something that's completely stupid and moronic, and you're watching it like a train wreck. Like it's one of those things you just can't take your eyes off of, but you're watching in disbelief, not in appreciation, but disbelief and disgust. The algorithm doesn't know the difference between, oh, he's watching it because he enjoys it, or he's watching this because he's like, oh God, like, are you serious? It doesn't know that. So it just knows you're watching it. Okay, this is what they're interested in. Send them another one. And then you see another clip like the one you were watching. And you're like, oh my God, people really doing this? The system doesn't understand. Oh, he's watching it in disgust. Stop sending. No, it's, oh, he's watching another one. Send him another one like that. And next thing you know, your timeline has all these different videos of something you actually ended up not liking. Now it's constantly in your face and you can't figure out why. And because you're not into it, but it's constantly in your phone, you go to a post, you go to a thread, you have a conversation with someone who actually does appreciate and like it. They might not be seeing the same clip you are. They may not have the same experiences you have had with said related clip. So here goes the beef. There goes the argument, right? A lot of people, you have to understand this in social media too. Motherfuckers will post something just to kick the hornet's nest. Red ants, black ants in the jar. Everything's perfectly fine. Someone will go in and post something just to shake the jar to watch people go at it. It's entertaining to them, and they don't care about the logistics of it. They just get a kick out of the fact that it's pissing everybody off, and they get enjoyment out of that. You have to be aware of that, bro. You have to be aware that some of these people are doing this shit because deep down they're awful people. Some of them are doing it just for trolling, which, okay, I guess. Sure, I mean, I've trolled, I guess you can say, in my day, but I troll to people that I know, and they know that I am trolling. So there's a difference. But there's an influx of people who just have an issue with today's world being more open to cultures. Ask yourself this question when it comes to these universes of superheroes. Do you think in these universes, if they were reality and existed, that there would be an Asian population in that universe? Do you believe that there would be a Hindu population in that universe? Do you believe there would be a Scandinavian population in that universe? Do you believe there would be an Eskimo population, a Native population, a Latin population, a Black population? Do you think there would be a queer population within that universe? If you say yes, why is it hard to believe that those groups would also have their variation of a superhero? Why does representation bother you? Here's why. Because we are so accustomed to things being a certain way that if it's different, it's wrong. Because we can't accept that, as the teacher once said, people have a hard time accepting a world that they don't know. It's very scary. On top of that, the accountability. They would have to sit there and acknowledge all the shit that they said about somebody. And now they got to sit back and support that person or those people or that group. You just bashed them for so many years. Now all of a sudden you got to show support because they're represented in a film. You're going to feel a certain type of way of negativity towards that. Most of the time, not all the time, but a good portion of the time, they don't know anyone from that group personally. So they're only going off of what they see and hear from a distance, right? So it annoys me that so many people have a problem with a superhero who's a woman. I haven't. Maybe the way that character was portrayed to them doesn't match how it's being portrayed now. Okay, I can understand that part. Maybe it's the fact that she has a vagina and you think that people with vaginas should only play one specific role in your comics. Okay, if that's the case, start your own comic book, right? Because there are women superheroes and they're awesome. And if you have a daughter, why would you not want her to have representation of someone she can grow up to be like? It's just interesting. It's interesting. So, what's your thoughts on that? You guys can more hit me up on Twitter or social media on Instagram. Or you can go ahead, if you have the Spreaker app, S-P-R-E-A-K-E-R, you can go ahead and leave me a comment and I'll communicate with you during the chat on episode 139. But it's important. Representation is important. It sounds so much like how it was back in the 60s that ignorance won't die because it's entertaining for those who choose not to understand. Right? So, and someone's going to say this little rant is woke. Well, if this is woke, then take your ass back to sleep. Simple as that. Okay? So, I just feel, let me take that back. I believe that representation does matter. And if you have this belief that things should just be one particular way, you might want to be evaluated. Because you don't agree doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. It's just different from what you believe should be true or what you believe should be right. The other video that I saw this morning, moving topic real quick, is Marlon Waynes speaking on Big Boy. I want to say it was his podcast. And it was about how black men in dresses in Hollywood. Watching this video, Marlon Waynes is talking about how, you know, referring to the movie White Chicks, and how, you know, black men in dresses, you know, isn't necessarily a derogatory thing, and it's comedy, and no one questioned when Robin Williams played Mrs. Doubtfire. I can't remember the other character he said of the male in dress. No one questions those characters. And just a side note, like in this clip, Big Boy kind of was sitting back with his arms crossed. It appeared, could be 100% wrong. It appeared like he was not digging anything Marlon was saying, but he was letting him talk. Right? I don't agree with what Marlon was saying. However, I do understand his perspective. The argument, the issue, the concern is in Hollywood, for the most part, in modern Hollywood, black actors, black male actors, careers never took off until they put on a dress. Once they put a dress and displayed themselves as a woman, that's when Hollywood, if you will, would open the gates to their career, to the kingdom. And most black male actors who don't put on a dress, who didn't put on a dress, refuse to put on a dress, their careers never took off, or their careers were highly disappointing, to say the least. So there was one character, I can't remember it, I was like Brandon Jackson. He was in the movie Tropic Thunder. If you remember Tropic Thunder, he was Al Pacino. He says, after he put on a dress, I want to say it was Big Mama House, his career fell. After that, it was done. It was almost like he was, quote unquote, blackballed. And I think it was because he didn't want to put on any more dresses after that character. And you really haven't heard from him ever since on a commercial scale. Is that a definite? Of course not. I can't think of a movie where Vin Diesel put on a dress. I can't think of one at all. I know he had The Pacifier. That was an interesting film. But he's known for the Riddick characters in Fast and Furious. So that's a completely different. I don't recall ever seeing him in a dress. Right? But certain characters that have like mega stardom type of vibe to them, most of them have had on dresses. And the stigma is the demasculation of the black male. Whether you agree with that shit or not, that's your prerogative. But all throughout art, all throughout theater, men have worn dresses in the art of acting. And I think that's what Marlon Wayne's angle was. It's part of the craft. There isn't anything negative about it. It's part of theater. It's part of what you do. If your character is to be portrayed as this is what it is. It's not a demasculation of anything. That was what I got from the point he was making in this video. I don't agree with him. But again, I understand where he's coming from. Because from everything that I have been able to see, most of the black men who have been brought a script where they are to wear a dress and or portray a female character, their careers have changed if they do deny. Cat Williams was one of those characters, and who was the other one? I saw the video. I think it was Dave Chappelle. He tells a story about how they adamantly tried to push him into a character that was wearing a dress, and he absolutely refused it. And I think the writer or the producer, someone with some pull on the set, came and tried to, talk him. He was like, I'm not going to do it. And I think he said something like as little as 20 minutes. They came back to his trailer with a different script. And his concern was, how did you have a whole ass different script from the time you left my trailer to the time you came back? What that means is you already had the script set for someone not in a dress, but you wanted me to be the one to wear it. Chappelle was another example of people who understand that is something in Hollywood, in that world, that it is believed once you put us in a dress, ultimately, you can get us to do anything. I have this notion when it comes to things of that magnitude. It's a control and it's a blackmail. I don't agree with what Marlon was saying, right? But I do understand where he's coming from when it comes to the art. The issue is the demasculation of the black man is a serious thing. It is a thing. The demasculation of a man is a serious thing. And when you can make a man feel less of a man, it's very difficult for anyone to have the same amount of respect for that man. Matter of fact, when you demasculate a man, hardly any respect is left for that man because he's been demasculated, right? You don't have any respect for him. I have this notion that when you turn down that, it's an insult to those who are in charge. It's one of those, well, I did it, you should do it. And because you give these reasons of why you refuse to do it, you make them feel a certain type of way for having done it. So the accountability part, right? We talked about this earlier. So then they lash out at you in your career. Since they're not getting what they want, you're not going to get what you want. And so therefore, it happens. Now, there are certain characters that are protected based on their contract and the series and a certain type of genre of films that they're in. But if you're ever asked to do it and you say no, there's a great chance your career would probably halt at that moment. Again, people want to sit back and say, it's bullshit, it's not true, it's superstition. I understand all those things. However, the foundation still exists. And it's one of those things where I've always had this feeling. They put you in these scenarios to see what you would look like as a woman. Because in my mind, homosexuality doesn't necessarily exist in that world. It's all about pleasure. What pleases you? What's your turn on? What excites you? They don't have labels in that tax bracket, right? They just have what's acceptable, right? So I've always thought that if you went along with it and you did put on the dress and they asked you to do something that you chose not to do or you refused to do, then they can use that as a blackmail, if you will. So that's always been one of those things where, again, man, I when you look at the history of how everything is done in this country, the industry, how everything started, you got to look at the foundation of shit. You got to look at the foundation of where everything was built at, right? So you take a house. If this house had a shitty foundation and a shitty structure, and was just a shitty home altogether, someone comes in and paints the outside, right? Someone comes in and they put down new flooring and they put down the new carpet and they paint the walls and they do a whole remodel of inside the house. People who come by that house is going to sit back and say, oh, this is a brand new house. Or, oh, this house looks so much better than it did before. Cosmetically, on the outside looking in, it's a different home. It's not the same. On the inside, it looks different. It's not the same. And when I say on the outside looking in, or when someone comes on the outside of the house, on the inside of the house, yes, but the bare bones of the house is still the same structure. It's still the same trusses. It's still the same framing. It's still the same foundation. It's still the same ground. If the foundation is sour, nothing changed because of what's underneath the home it stands on. If the structure of the home still has the same problem, all you did was make it appear more attractive. That's what a lot of people don't choose to understand. The foundation of something, where something sits, what's inside is still the same. It's cosmetically more attractive. It's cosmetically doesn't give the same vibe, but internally, deep down, it's still what it always has been. A shitty house, a poorly constructed home. They just gave it to somebody else to deal with, but they spruced it up. And it's the sprucing of that home that makes people feel this is different. Actuality is not. Especially when you start seeing all the flaws in the home and how no one's changed it. So when people sit back and say things like sexism is, or racism is, or placism is, understand something. That's the foundation that these things were built on. That's the structure in which this house has. It's always going to be this way because this is how it was. In order for you to make sure that everything is brand new, you must strip down, tear down, demolish, and rebuild. That's how you fix the problem. I don't think people are ready for things to be destroyed and reconstructed. I really don't think we are. As much as we want this Epstein list to come out, kind of go on a tangent right quick and come right back. As much as we want this Epstein list to come out, we're not ready for that shit to come out. Because it would highly chance of it destroying Hollywood. If people were pissed off during COVID about movies not coming out and movies not being released, what do you think is going to happen when you find out X amount of actors, actresses, executives, producers, writers, cinematographers all has something to do with that? There's a reason why multi-billionaire people are very difficult to incarcerate. Because the system understands if you take this person out of the equation, this will crumble. Can we afford for this to crumble? Who can we get to replace that person before we take them away so this doesn't crumble? We will celebrate once these names are public until it directly affects our entertainment. then it's going to be a problem. So you need to be cautious and very aware of what it is that you ask for, right? You have to be cautious and you have to be very aware, because if you get it, you're going to realize it might not be what the hell you thought it was going to be, but now you're stuck with this decision. So when it comes to black men in dresses, when it comes to P.O.C. come in and female-led characters in comics and movies, you have to understand, one should understand, that all of this is as important of growth for society, so we do not move backwards. We have to understand that. Otherwise, again, you sound just like the people 60 years ago who didn't want to give people rights. You sound just like them, because it disturbs your normal way of life. You have to be affected by this change, and you don't like it. That's why it's a problem. My thing is this: if you don't like something, avoid it. Because you souring everyone else's sweet makes you feel better. That's not a good look. So I will have conversations with people that I know about something I like, or if I didn't like, cool. But I don't understand, I guess, again, social media, you have an opinion and everyone has an opinion and everyone feels the world should know their opinion. I understand that. But if someone likes something that you don't like, why must you go out of your way to tell them how wrong they are or to check them about it? It's a movie, bruh. It's a movie about a comic character. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. It's a movie about a woman leading and she's taking charge. And what's wrong with that? Again, I think the timing of everything isn't helping, but that shouldn't be that big of a deal, right? And again, with the Marlon Waynes thing, it just, I don't agree with it, but I understand what he's talking about. It just, they do their best to demasculate black men. And it's one of those things where we wear it, you should wear it. I don't want to wear it. But if you don't wear it, you're not going to get this. It's a very, very sensitive subject for a lot of people. I understand the artistic part of it, but it's one of those scenarios where the reasoning changes when you get to certain groups. Again, we talk about the whole woke thing. Woke meant one thing. A certain group got a hold of it. They changed the meaning and they broadcast it. It almost seems as if, and I'm speaking from a black male perspective, it almost seems as if anything that involves us, it always gets twisted to discredit, dismantle, or disingenuously discredit anything that somebody does. Knock you down it knocks you down a peg. You know what I'm saying? And if a person doesn't want to wear a dress, they shouldn't have to wear a dress. Now, if a person chooses to wear a dress, that's their prerogative, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who enjoy the Tyler Perry movies. I'm sure there's a lot of people who enjoy Norbit. There's people who love the Big Mama's House. There's people who did have a problem with The Rock in the movie Be Cool, where he was a gay character, right? Some people feel it gives you range as a character where you can play anything. I enjoyed the movie Tu Wan Fu when I was younger. I enjoyed that. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was pretty dope. But again, my personality, I didn't judge John Leguizamo or Wesley Snipes for playing drag queens. I understood, like, okay, it was a cool movie, no big deal. They understand character in film and in theater. Okay. But I'm wondering if that had anything to do with either one of them no longer being on the grand scheme of things in the movies like they used to when they were younger. I wonder if that played a part with it. Because the last time I saw John Leguizamo after that film was in John Wick. Right? The last thing I remember of Wesley Snipes on a big major stage was The Tax Problem. So it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but it does seem once you get to that role, if you don't do what they want you to do after, it's almost as if they silence you. So you have to hopefully have a good team that protects you from that. Or more importantly, you're not presented with that option. Because some people are going to get their feelings hurt if you tell them no. That's just me. I just had to go on that rant this morning. So I appreciate you guys listening for that. But that's my take on it, man. In the 60s, going back to the comic idea, man, back then, you didn't have, only in certain markets and certain pockets were you able to do that. And now is the time where it's more accepted than anything else. I feel that maybe they are oversaturating it. But then again, the algorithm is set up to where when you see something, it's going to keep feeding you what you're looking at until you stop. So it's a gift and it's a curse, right? So that's how I see it. I remember listening to 50 Cent's audiobook where he talks about he didn't want, what was it, Empire or Power being labeled as a black show. He didn't want that. His argument was very, very valid. He says, with his music, he had a lot of white artists. He had a lot of white audience buy his album, Get Rich or Die Trying, for example. He has a lot of white fan base, a large white fan base. So why would they want to make it a black show? Because in that world, the way he puts it, black movies, black shows, black films, black cinema, you're only allotted a certain amount of screens, movie theaters, places that are going to show your film. Because the execs believe nobody outside of that demographic is going to want to see this type of show based on whatever they're basing it on. His argument was, if 60, 70, 80% of my concerts, most of my shows are Caucasian audience, and they listen to my music, and they buy my merchandise, and they come to my shows, why would those same people not be interested in watching a TV show that is done by me? He says, so I don't label it as a black show. Otherwise, they will pigeonhole him into this certain area. So he keeps that label off of it in order for him to be able to get into more screens and more TVs and a wider audience. I brought that up right now because I know there are people who are listening to this episode not understanding, not realizing, or most importantly, choosing not to accept the fact that race still plays a part in this country. It just isn't as blatant as it once was before most of us were born. It's been remodeled. It's been spruced up. It's still the same shitty foundation with the same shitty structure. It just has better paint and nicer flowers, right? It's better carpet. It has better lighting. but the foundation structure is still the same. So you have to understand in certain cases where you get your information from. How credible is the source that you're getting it? All because you are agreeing with what I think does not make us right. It just means we think the same. We have to, in my opinion, in order for us to advance, we must get out of our head what we traditionally believe is right. Because we agree doesn't mean that it is. A lot of this shit is subjective. Hopefully one day we'll be able to get on that page. I appreciate the fact that there are female-led characters out there. And I think they're badass. I think there are horrible male characters. I think there are awesome female characters. Pick and choose. I'm not going to like you because of your race. I'm not going to like you. I'm not going to not like you because of your race. I'm not going to not like you because of your gender. I'm going to not like you because of the character that you portrayed. Or I'm going to not like you just because you're a shitty person. Right? Simple as that. But because I don't like you doesn't mean that I don't have any type of respect for you unless you're just a POS through and through. But that's me. So I wanted to get on this, get this out there just for the world. You're more than welcome to hit me with your opinion. The E.I.T.H.R, E.I.T.H.R. Social media, Instagram, same as Twitter. TikTok, you can follow us, TheGNSINC. You can also follow the YouTube. That'd be great. Free subscription to GNSETV.com. Shout out to Mile.today. Thank you, GNS Entertainment, for the soundtrack. We will be back for episode 140, most likely tomorrow. 916-282-9372. It's your boy D-Cal for the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Appreciate you guys. All right, y'all be safe. We out.
Hey everybody, what's up? This is Sabrina Jade, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with D-Cal.